Hey guys, how's it going? Kripparrian here. Today we have massive card review. We're going to go through all of the cards that are coming up in the upcoming expansion Ashes of Outland, as well as the new basic cards, as well as some of the new changed priest cards. It's going to be the mega card review, but it's going to be in a different style that I think is more digestible. I know a lot of you guys mostly check out Battlegrounds. That's what I mostly do, but there are some really interesting cards. So I'm going to go through these and I'm going to give you guys just my rundown along with selecting my top picks as we encounter them. All right, let's get started here. So first off, Demon Hunter cards. We have Chaos Strike. Give your hero 2 attack this turn, draw a card. It's a pretty good cycle card. I expect to see a decent bit of this in Demon Hunter decks. Cycle cards are always really good. Coordinated Strike, summon 3/1/1 with Rush. It's kind of like Unleash Light. There is a opportunity for Demon Hunter to play sacrifice minions for effects, and this is a card that follows that archetype, but it doesn't seem insanely strong to me, so I'm not sure. The Shadowhoof Slayer, 1-drops are always really good, even though they might seem pretty bad. Somehow they always sneak into decks. 1 cost, 2/1, give your hero 1 attack this turn. Solid value tempo, and turn 1 capable. Chaos Nova, 4 to all minions. It's all minions, but you don't take any face damage, which is pretty important. There is opportunity for a control-based Demon Hunter, and I imagine that this deck will have to make that cut. Sightless Watcher, 2 cost 3/2. Look at the top 3 cards in your deck. Choose 1 to put on top. So you basically get to curve out nicely in the next turn, maybe the turn after. Very powerful card. I expect to see this in most Demon Hunter decks. The Satyr Overseer, 3 for a 4/2. When your hero attacks, you get a 2/2 Satyr. It's a demon, and remember the hero power for Demon Hunters cost 1. So pretty good value. Probably slots into the play a bunch of dudes Demon Hunter. The Glavebound Adept, 5 for a 7/4. If your hero has attack this turn, which is really easy to do, deal 4 damage. You can do that to your opponent's face, or you can go for a board swing tempo play by killing your opponent's minion. It's attack heavy, so I imagine it'll be very good in an aggressive style Demon Hunter. Inner Demon, give your hero 8 attack this turn. So it costs 8, so this looks really bad, but there are ways to attack multiple targets or multiple times with Demon Hunter. Now, I think that is a pretty experimental archetype that will probably need a little bit of a love over the next few expansions, but who knows? It's direct damage people can't stop in most cases. Soul Cleave, it's cleave, but it has lifesteal. Life's really important for Demon Hunter. Is it 1 mana more important? I think not, but maybe. Lifesteal Weapon, 3 for a 2/3 is fair, and you get lifesteal. You can buff that, so you can gain a lot of life. I think this might see some play because the flexibility of it being a direct damage type of card like a weapon, as well as a healing, flexibility kind of shines through. Command the Illidari gives you 6/1/1s with Rush for 5. This card's pretty ridiculous. I think this is going to be the staple of the play a bunch of dudes and kill them off Demon Hunter. Probably should give that a name rather than that description, but that's what we have for now. Twin Slice, give your hero 1 attack this turn, add a 2nd slice to your hand. So 0-cost cards, very strong, very scary in the game of Hearthstone, and this is one that I think will be very good. Any kind of fast Demon Hunter deck should include this, so it'll be a pretty good popular card. Flame Reaper, 7 cost 4/3, also damages the minions next to whomever your hero attacks. So your hero gets cleave, basically. It's a 4/3 for 7, so that might be a bit tricky. It depends on the playstyle that we can expect. If we can really expect games to go on past turn 7 and they're mid-range minion-based, well, this is your answer. But can we really expect that with certainty? Probably not yet. Battle Fiend, 1 cost 2/1. After your hero attacks, gain 1 attack. Oh, it's a 2/2, sorry. Very strong card. Lots of stats, win more, and it's a demon. Blade Dance. Deal damage equal to your hero's attack to 3 random enemy minions. So if you just use your hero power and then this, it does 1 damage 3 times. Not all that good. But if you have a lot of weapons, suddenly it gets really crazy very quickly. The Ratscale Naga is 3 for a 3/1, and this is the staple of the Swarm Demon Hunter. Let's call it that. So when a friendly minion dies, you deal 3 damage to a random enemy. It's kind of like Soul Juggler in the Battlegrounds, except it can hit your opponent in the face directly, which is a really big deal, actually. The Horror, 1 for a 2/1. The Death Rattle, you get a 2/1 to your hand. Basically, play a bunch of dudes, keep your opponent busy, sack him off. The Fell Screamer, 4 cost 4/4. The next demon you play costs 2 less. This card is very strong because it allows you to play your mid-range and late-game demons that much earlier. This is not a same turn effect. You can play the demon 6 turns later, it'll still have the discount. So very strong, deceptively good, and you'll see why shortly. Feast of Souls, draw a card for each friendly minion that died this turn. This is going to be a really good card. If the Swarm Demon Hunter ever makes it, it's going to be on the back of this card. Card draw is key, and with this, you might draw upwards of, honestly, a full hand in 1 turn for 2 mana. Legendary Demon Hunter card. Summon 2 random 0-cost minions, but it upgrades. So each time a minion dies, it upgrades. And you could upgrade to get some pretty big stuff later on. Is that worth it? I don't know. The Swarm deck, you probably want to heavily synergize it on Swarm cards, and this isn't that. But it's really powerful if you play that. So I don't know about the risk-reward consistency aspect. I think it might be marginal, but it's pretty good nevertheless. The Hulking Overfiend is a board control monster. 5/10, it has rush, and after it kills a minion when attacking, it can attack again. For 8, it's a pretty steep price, but there is some way to cheat out the demons, so you don't necessarily have to pay the full 8. Soul Split, choose a friendly demon, summon a copy of it. Could be very good, depending on the upcoming demons. Consume Magic, Silence, and Outcast, draw a card. Outcast is the mechanic if the card is the leftmost or rightmost, so the either extreme to your hand. Now, silencing an enemy minion and drawing a card, that would work out in a deck where you play out your cards very quickly, kind of like an aggro deck. You silence their taunt and you redraw off of it. So it's consistent with the aggressive Demon Hunter playstyle. The Ratspike Brute is a 5 for a 2/6 taunt, and after it's attacked, it deals 1 damage to all enemies, including your opponent's face. So it's kind of like a face card that prevents you from being swarmed down. I think this card is deceptively powerful. I think it's going to be one of the best Demon Hunter cards overall, because you can just play it in almost every deck, and it counters aggro really well. And that's probably going to be the main weakness for Demon Hunters. Your hero can't take damage this turn. It's a 0-cost spell, so why not? Maybe cycle, maybe gadgets and shenanigans, who knows? Mana Burn, your opponent has 2 fewer mana crystals next turn. This card is not very good, but it's possible that a combo meta would form around something in the upcoming expansion. I don't know exactly what would actually work consistency-wise, but if this gives you an opportunity to not lose to an OTK combo, well, that would be very good for 1 mana, wouldn't it? I-Beam. You can expect this to be included in most Demon Hunter decks, if not all of them. This is certainly one of the best cards that Demon Hunter is getting. It deals 3 to a minion. It has lifesteal, so you heal off of it. And if it's the outermost card, Outcast, costs nothing. Nothing. Kill something and heal costs nothing. Insane. The Fellblade is a 4 for a 5/3. It's got Rush, and the Outcast gives it immune this turn. So it's kind of like a Divine Shield effect. So for 4 mana, is that good? Yeah, that's pretty good. Umberwing. New weapon. You get 2 1/1s when you play it, and it's a 2-cost weapon. It's a 1/2. It's like mini muster. Remember how good a muster for battle was? Well, that's basically what this is, except it's 1 turn earlier. So you can imagine it's pretty good. Another legendary for Demon Hunters, 3 for a 3/2. After you play the left or rightmost card, you deal 1 damage to all enemies. So we talked about kind of like the fact that Demon Hunters are getting a lot of cards that cost nothing. Well, this would work pretty well with those cards, would it not? Kane's Sun Fury. Obviously, it's going to be one of the strongest cards in the game in the expansion in Demon Hunter. This is one of my Picks, this is easily 5 stars. There's no questions about it. 4 cost, 3/5 charge is pretty good considering the price that Blizzard puts on charge minions before they inevitably nerf them and put them in the Hall of Fame, honestly. This one also makes everything ignore taunt. Everything. This is your hero. This is all of your other minions. This is this minion itself. It's like your opponent has like 6 taunts in the way and he has like, 10 health. You have just like some dinky minions on the board. You play this, you kill him. It's insane. Netherwalker, 2 for a 2/2. Discover a demon. Solid. 4 for a 3/5 taunt lifesteal. This is going to be not the first or second lifesteal card used if you need more health playing Demon Hunters, but it's possible, given the meta, that you really would need a lot of health playing Demon Hunters. So it could be a card that sees a lot of play. Metamorphosis, legendary spell in the upcoming expansion for Demon Hunters. It swaps your hero power to deal 5 damage. After 2 uses, swap it back. So you can deal 5 damage to anything. The Demon Hunter base hero power costs 1 mana. This one also costs 1 mana. So for a total of 7, you can kind of like Pyroblast your opponent over 2 turns. Or you can control the board. It's not bad. It's kind of like a weapon that doesn't have you take damage, but it's a pretty fair card, I would say. So I don't know. Might see some play. Maybe not. Warglaves of Azeroth. Not a legendary, unfortunately. 5 for a 3/4. After attacking a minion, your hero can attack again. So if you can buff your hero's attack considerably, this might be really good to kill big things and hit your opponent in the face, I suppose. Crimson Sigil Runner is 1 for a 2/1, and the Outcast draws a card. So good, right? You just wait until it's one of your outermost cards, and you cycle it for 1 and get a 2/1. Nothing wrong with that. Pit Commander. Here we're going to get some big demons, guys, and this is one of the biggest. It's a 9-cost demon. For a 7/9, it has taunt, so it gives you some staying power in that game when you spend 9 mana for it. And it has an end of turn effect that's really powerful. It pulls a demon from your deck into play. That's really good, especially if it pulls itself and then starts pulling more. The way you have to look at this card is it's close to a Yashiraj with taunt. Remember that card? Well, that card was pretty good. So I would say this card is pretty good as well. Spectral Sight, you draw a card, and if it's Outcast, you draw another. Not great, but if you're playing a deck that literally dumps its hand all of the time, it's pretty good. Draw 2 for 2. Nothing wrong with that. Priestess of Fury. This is my guaranteed 5-star card list card. This card's insane. Like, insane. Like you think this card is insane, and then you're going to play it, and then you're going to be like, wow, this card is even more insane than the insane that I thought it was. So it's a 7 cost, it's a pretty pricey card, but you can discount demons. Remember, there's a 4 cost 4/4 that discounts your next demon by 2. Well, you can play this on turn 5. Let me tell you something. If you play this on turn 5, you will win that game. There's almost nothing that can stop this. Even if your opponent removes it, this card basically kills everything on the board if played on turn 5 and needs to take the whole turn to be removed. It has 7 health. It's a demon. So at the end of your turn, deal 6 damage randomly split among all enemies. Right? This is crazy. It's like a Ragnaros that can attack that's even better because it kills off all the small minions and you can just hit your opponent in the face consistently with it. Absurd card. Oh, and by the way, you can have 2 of them in your deck because it's not a legendary. Furious Felfin, the Murloc Demon Bro. It's a 2 for a 3/2, but it gets 1 attack and a rush if your hero attacked this turn, which again is pretty easy to do, so strong card. Fel Summoner, 6 for an 8/3, Death Rattle summons a random demon from your hand. So this is another way to, cheat out those gigantic demons. You'd really only want to play this really cheating out those exact gigantic demons. It's not a very good card at face value. You have to really hit something at least 6 mana, usually more for this to be worthwhile. Immolation Aura does 1 damage to everything twice. Actually a pretty good board clear. I think this will be included in any non-aggro Demon Hunter decks, obviously. Skull of Gul'dan, draw 3. Outcast. Reduce their cost by 3. This card is pretty good, but I think it's worse than people think because To get a consistent trigger off of Outcast, you need to play a deck that's very fast, and if you play a deck that's very fast, it clashes with the secondary effect of this card. If something costs 2 mana, reducing it by 3 doesn't really pay off that well. If something costs 1 mana, again, if you're playing a fast deck, a lot of things are going to cost 1 and 2 mana. You're not going to get the payout for the Outcast trigger. So we'll see. It could see some play in some very powerful decks, but it looks unlikely right now. Coilfang Warlord. 8 costs 9/5 rush, and when it dies, you get a 5/9 Warlord with taunt. Wow. That is a absolutely insane amount of stats, but it costs 8. So it costs 8 and doesn't necessarily win the game by itself. So it's probably just pretty good and constructed, but holy cow, is this card going to destroy in Arena? Yeah. Imprisoned Antaean, 5 cost 10/6, and when it wakes up, deals 10 damage randomly split among all enemies. This is going on my guaranteed 5-star card list. This card is absolutely obscenely powerful. Maybe not quite as strong as a Priest of Fury, but just under her. So the idea is you play this, that turn does nothing. Turn 6 does nothing. Turn 7 pings 10 times and you have a 10/6 demon on the board. That's where you win the game. Druid cards, we have the Imprisoned Satyr, 3 for a 3/3, dormant for 2 turns, and when it wakes up, reduce the cost of a random minion in your hand by 5. A lot of combo potential, but Druid really struggles to stay on the board, and this card certainly does not help with that. I have doubts that this is great. Fungal Fortunes, draw 3, discard any minions. Certainly going to see some play. You can play Druids with almost, maybe even entirely spells if you need to. Germination, summon a copy of a friend minion, give the copy Taunt. Again, pretty combo driven. It's difficult to see this in a value environment. Maybe if you're playing kind of like big taunts and then, you play this and just get the extra effect of having more taunts in play. I don't know. Seems interesting, but probably not quite good enough to see play regularly. Overgrowth, gain 2 empty mana crystals. For 1 more, another mana crystal? I don't know. Might be all right. Probably not though. Legendary card, your spells cost 1. So there's a lot of cool stuff you could think of using with this. Generally, you play this on a really big spell. It makes it kind of worth it, but it just, at least in Druid, it just doesn't seem quite as powerful as Kael'thas. So why not both? Pretty good card then. Ironbark gives a minion +1/+3 and taunt. If you have 7 mana crystals, it costs nothing. Look at that. Very strong card. Marsh Hydra, 7 for a 7/7 rush. After attacks, add a random 8 to your hand. So you get that the turn that you play it. So it's kind of 7 for a 7/7 rush with a draw. It's a pretty good card, but again, it's a very late game card. So there's a lot of competition for this mana slot and the ones after. While it's very good, I can guarantee you it's a 5-star card in Arena. I can't really give it the rating for Constructed. Bog Beam deals 3, costs 0 if you have 7 mana crystals. Look at that. I think this card is very good. If you do 3 damage for 3 mana as Druid, that is often good enough. And doing it for free later, that's huge. Huge. Very good card. Glowfly Swarm. You get a 2/2 Glowfile for each spell in your hand. So the maximum board is 7. So really you just need this among 7 other spells in your hand for it to be optimal. Now, how much do you really need to hit for it to be a decent play? Probably 4. 3 is okay, but 4 is pretty good, right? So you have 4 other spells and play this, well, it's pretty good. Is that going to be likely? Yeah, possibly. Seems like there's a lot of synergy for Druids to play a spell-heavy deck in the upcoming expansion. This is pretty good then. Legendary card, 3 for a 3/4. This is the Prime. So the Death Rattle shuffles the Prime card, but 3 for a 3/4 taunt's pretty good. And the Prime card is a 9/9 taunt, and you can choose to get a 9/9 with taunt or rush in addition to this dude. Good? Pretty good. Nagrand Slam. Huge hunter card. It costs 10, but you get 4 3/5s that can go towards your opponent's face right away. This card is a colossal bomb. I have a feeling that it is going to be good enough to see constructed play despite the 10 mana cost of the card, but we'll see. You can never guarantee 10 mana cost cards being played anywhere. Porcupine, 3 for a 2/4. When it dies, its attack gets Arcane Missile in your opponent's stuff. Strong card, seeing as it's a beast. It's pretty easy to buff them. Speaking of buffs, 1 for a 2/1. Random beast gets +1/+1 when it dies. Good enough. Pack Tactics is a new secret for Hunter. When a friendly minion is attacked, you summon a 3/3 copy. So it's very good with death rattle effects, even though some of those death rattle effects might be pretty small. It's not bad because you're getting at least a 3/3 with maybe some additional effect for 2. Scrap Shot deals 3, and you give a random beast in your hand +3/+3. That can scale very nicely. I think this card is quite good. I think it's comparable to I think it was Kobolds and Catacombs. It did 3 and gave you a 3/3 minion for 4. I think this is maybe a little bit worse in most decks, but in some decks where you're actually leading towards a gigantic beast win, maybe OTK condition, it's actually a lot better. So we'll see. This is a prime for Hunters. It's a 3 for a 2/4 with Rush. Pretty good, not bad. Primed up when you draw it after you lose it the first time. It's 8 cost, 4/4, and you get 3 copies. You get 4 of them total. You get 4 4/4s for 8. Is that good enough? Yeah, that's like kind of good enough. But if you get a single buff on this card, it's a game winner. Imprisoned Felmaw is a Hunter Demon. 2 for a 5/4, dormant for 2 turns, and when it awakens, you attack a random enemy. It can hit your opponent in the face. My argument with this card is you probably won't be winning the early game that much if you're playing this on turn 2, and then basically you're doing nothing on turn 2. You're just suddenly behind. If you're behind, this is not that good. So I think it's okay. It's an okay card. The Lion is a 4 for a 5/2. It's a beast. It's got Rush. And you choose a friendly minion and you get a copy of its death rattle. So you often will get a death rattle effect of your choice. And that can be very powerful, though we'll have to see how best to combo something like this. The Scavenger's Ingenuity, you draw a beast, give it +3/+3 for 2 mana. Very good value. I expect we'll see lots of this card. The other legendary for Hunters, the Beastmaster Lyrax, is an 8 for a 5/5, and the Battlecry summons 3 beasts from your hand. This is combo written all over it. I imagine this will be a really fun card to play, but I think there's going to be many different ways to play Hunter. Some that are just going to be really effective, just playing stats, playing beasts, playing stats. That's all you need sometimes. With this, it might just be a bit overkill and it might just be a bit too inconsistent, but certainly it will result in some great YouTube highlights. I think it's a good card, but I think it'll struggle with consistency. Mage. Reduce the cost of spells in your deck by 1. That's right. All of them. There's a lot of reasons in the upcoming expansion to play a mage deck with no minions, and this is one of the big reasons to do exactly that. So, yeah. It's not just that you get value. If you go the distance and you reduce the cost of, let's say you play this on turn 2, 26 spells by 1. Wow, that's a 24 mana ramp. But it's not just that. It enables you to have combinations of spells that you wouldn't otherwise have. It allows you to more easily clear the board and do what you want, which is always the problem when you're playing heavy board clear skills in Mage. So it allows you to do a lot of stuff you weren't able to before. I think it looks good because it is good, but I think it's even better than that. Netherwind Portal, new secret. After your opponent casts a spell, summon a random 4-cost minion. I don't think it's that good, but I think the deck will need it, because if you're playing a deck with entirely spells, you need any okay kind of minion generators you can get your hands on. And this is basically a fitting description for this card. Imprisoned Observer, 3 for a 4/5, dormant for 2 turns though. And when it awakens, he deals 2 to all enemy minions. I think this card is absolutely insane. I think with Mage, because you have a lot of board clears, because you have a lot of control, you absolutely can play dormant cards, let alone ones that help you clear the board and help you keep a presence the same turn. that they clear the board. You don't have to see this as like, well, what am I getting for 3 mana? Mage can kind of afford to start losing, okay? It's what are you getting on those key turns? What you're getting on turn 5 is a free board clear and a 4/5. That's really good. Evocation. Fill your hand with random mage spells at the end of your turn. Discard them. Considering a lot of mage spells actually just generate other stuff, this will work out pretty well. I think Evocation is going to be one of the best cards in Mage in the game for the rest of Hearthstone's existence. I think this is going to be an easy 5-star card. I think there's going to be very few decks that wouldn't run this just because it's so good, so much draw, and such potential to win a game you otherwise couldn't. Star Scryer, 2 for a 3/1, Death Rattle, draw spell, solid. Font of Power, discover a mage minion, and if your deck has no minions, you keep all 3 of them for 1. Very good. But yeah, I think this kind of is the missing piece to the full spell mage. Without this card, you just can't really pull the deck off. So it's really this card that brings it together. So even though it's just pretty good as a card, it's really important to the archetype. Pexus Smuggler, 2 for a 2/3. After you play a secret, discover a spell. Very solid card. This is the Prime for Mage, 2 for a 3/2. It's got the spell damage, so pretty fair 2-cost card. And when it comes back, it's still got spell damage. It's 7 for a 7/7. It's a demon now, and it casts 5 random mage spells, targets enemies if possible. So through some fancy math, basically the sum of it is this effect is really good. This card is really good. Deep Freeze, cost 8, but it's not bad. You get 2 water elementals and you freeze something. So you get to lock it down. The turn you play this, you lock something down, and then hopefully your water elementals can continue to lock that thing down is kind of the idea. Pretty good card, but it's pretty pricey, but it's a card that spawns minions as a spell. And that might be a really valuable combination in the upcoming expansion. Pexus Blast, deal 5. If you have no minions, summon a random 5 cost. Super OP, but it sucks in Arena. I love it. Paladin cards. So start off with some more Murlocs. 1 for a 2/1. It's dormant for 2 turns. When it awakens, 2 1/1 Murlocs. Not bad. Because on turn 1, well, you can't do too much anyway. And if you really get the sum of it, it's kind of like a pretty okay 3-drop. So not bad at all. Librams. So there's a lot of effects. The Librams, they might all look bad by themselves, but there's a lot of cards, as we'll see here shortly, that actually reduce the cost of Librams as a whole. So you're not paying 6 mana for this. A lot of time you're paying like 4 mana, maybe 3 mana, maybe 2 mana for this. Equip a 1/4 weapon and you change the health of all enemies to 1. That's pretty huge. That's actually worth 6 mana. Now, if you can discount this, that's really crazy. So this card is going to be really good. And again, really powerful in Arena if it's going to stay common in the actual common slot. But I'm not really sure how the probability of seeing cards in Arena works. Maybe that'll be a different video. The Angling Rod is a 3 for a 3/2. And after your hero attacks, you add a random Murloc to your hand. Pretty good for value. I think you'll see some play, at least in Murloc Paladin. Murloc Legendary is the Prime. Murgurgle. Yes, of course. 2 for a 2/1. It's got Divine Shield. It's a pretty good card then. The Prime is an 8-cost 6/3, also with Divine Shield. And when you summon it, you get 4 random Murlocs, which also get Divine Shield. So that's going to be a really annoying board to deal with. This card's going to be crazy. Aldor Attendant, 2 for a 2/3. This is a Libram reduction. So if you play Librams, you gotta play this card, and it's a pretty fair card to play. Another Libram restores 8. You get an 8/8 with Taunt and Divine Shield. Super huge recovery. Again, you kind of need to play most of the Libram cards, not just individually. But this one you might play individually, maybe. If you're playing like a very stall-heavy deck, maybe. I don't know. Ancient Guardian, 8 for an 8/8, Taunt, Divine Shield. Not crazy, but okay. Oh wait, that's the token. Yes, that's the token. Okay, well I guess we can only judge its appearance. Looks good. Libram of Wisdom. It gives a minion +1/+1 and Death Rattle. Add a Libram of Wisdom spell to your hand, so you can just keep playing them for nothing eventually. That'd be pretty good. The Aldor Truthseeker is 5 for a 4/6. It has taunt, and it has the Libram cost reduction. Reduces by 2 in this case. Very strong. Hand of a Doll gives a minion +2/+2 and draw a card. Good cycle. Lady Liadrin. Add a copy of each spell you cast on friendly characters this game to your hand. So this does very well if you have a lot of buffs, if you have a lot of Librams, if you just want to have more copies of effects than you normally could. It's a pretty powerful card. It's a deceptively powerful card. When we first saw this, we're like, yeah, I like the effect, but I'm not sure it's worth it. Then we got Librams. We're like, okay, it's kind of worth it. So it's kind of worth it. Priest cards, Reliquary of Souls, 1 for a 1/3 lifesteal. This is one of the primes. Priest is transitioning into much more of a board-centric zoo class, and this card fits the bill incredibly well, let alone the prime version. 7 for a 6/8 taunt lifesteal. Only you can target it with spells and hero power. Oh my god, this card is going to be crazy strong. Soul Mirror. Legendary spell for Priest. Summon copies of enemy minions. They attack their copies. This is Battlegrounds in a card. You copy your opponent's build, and they just attack each other. I think it's pretty good. Obviously, it's nullified in a Resurrect-based Priest, but otherwise it's going to see play in most of the other Priest decks, I imagine. Renew. Restore 3. Discover a spell for 1. Obviously very strong. Psych Split. It's one of these split cards again, but it's more expensive, but you get the buff, and buffs are really good with splits. I have a feeling it's not going to be played very much, but we'll see. Give a minion +1/+2, summon a copy of it. Okay. Sethek Veilweaver, 2 for a 2/3. After you cast a spell on a minion, add a priest spell to your hand. So it's not quite Lyra. It's similar, but it costs 2 mana. It's not just the 2 mana. You can get it earlier. You can just play this as a zoo minion. It's a 2-cost 2/3. A 2-cost 2/3 is pretty fair when you're just playing zoo. And Priest kind of is playing zoo. So even though you might not actually use this effect at all the turn that you play it, it's still a very good card. So overall, this is just a very good card. Dragonmaw Overseer. It's tough to get established on the board, but the Overseer is going to basically solidify your establishment on the board. 3 for a 2/2 is obviously terrible, but at the end of the turn, you give another friendly minion +2/+2. That's 4/4 in stats with a win more stat buffing effect in Priest. Ridiculously big, but we don't know. Aggro decks, they're always super cutthroat against one another. Priest is getting a lot of zoo and aggro cards. Might be that Priest has like the best aggro game, but if they're like 3rd or 4th best, all this stuff's kind of going to fizzle out. So we'll have to see. Apotheosis. Give a minion +2/+3 and lifesteal. Strong effect. How good are buffs? We'll see. I think in any case, this is going to be a great card to randomize into. Imprisoned Homunculus is 1 for a 2/5 with taunt. It's dormant for 2 turns, but considering you rarely are able to do much on turn 1 and you have buff effects on turn 3, well, that works out pretty nicely, doesn't it? This card's going to be really good most of the time, I think. The Dragonmaw Sentinel is 2 for a 1/4, and if you're holding a dragon, it gets +1 attack and lifesteal. We had a card very similar to this, where it got +1 attack and taunt if you held the dragon. That was in a state of the game where it was much slower, and taunt, I think, was less useful. So this probably doesn't quite meet the standard card for card, but with the consideration that Priest is just better at the zoo game in general, maybe this is better than I think. Skeletal Dragon is a huge card, 7 for a 4/9. It's a dragon, it's a taunt. At the end of the turn, you add a random dragon to your hand. We've learned just how powerful dragons are when you get them even at random. It's a perfectly statted card, enough attack, and the rest of its value all the way into its health. This card is going to be crazy good. The new Holy Smite deals 3, but only to a minion. Rip Face Priest. Psychic Conjurer, I believe, is part of the basic set now. It's 1 for a 1/1, and the Battlecry copies a card from your opponent's deck and adds it to your hand. Nice cantrip card. You're going to want to play a lot of stuff like this in the new, I guess, Priest identity. Put stuff on the board and get the value back if it doesn't hold. This fits the bill very well. Power Infusion, again, part of the new basic set. +2/+6 for 4. Good. Not bad. I would say you wouldn't put this in a deck, but you'd be happy to get it from a random card generator. Kultiran Chaplain, 2 for a 2/3, strong stat line. Battle Cry, give a friendly minion +2 health. Ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. The Talonsmith was one of the most hated arena cards ever, and this is the 2-mana version of it. Scarlet Subjugator, 1 for a 2/1, give an enemy minion -2 attack until your next turn. It's a little bit more difficult to play cards like these that depend on you having something that you can attack into your opponent's stuff with the turn that you play it. It's also a 1-drop. It's just a lot trickier to play. I think it can be good, but Priest really has to be like the best zoo/aggro deck in the game for this to be really good. I have my doubts that'll be the case, but it's possible. Shadow War Ruin, destroy all minions with 5 or more attack. Quite interesting. But again, will the meta ever call for this card? History shows us probably not. Natalie Celine, 8 for an 8/1. The Battle Cry destroys a minion and gains its health. Most of the time, if this card's meta, and trust me, it'll never really be meta, but if it is, people just won't play super big stuff against Priest unless they absolutely have to. So you'll probably be sitting on this in your hand for a really long time before you can get much use out of it. The new Thought Seal costs 2. Very nice. Bamboozle. I sure got bamboozled about this card in the card reveal stream. So when you attack a minion, it replaces it, it transforms it into one that costs 3 more. 3 more. It's a mass evolution. And it's a very interesting card art that quite accurately describes what the card does. Very strong card. Shadow Jeweler Hanar, 2 for a 1/5. Huge stats. After you play a secret, discover a secret from a different class. So infinite value. Well, not exactly. You can only have 5 secrets up at any given time. So it's just going to be really difficult for your opponent to deal with this. I think this is going to be a super strong card. I would say this is going to be a 5-star card in the upcoming expansion. 1 for a 3/1 stealth for Rogue. Can't go wrong with that. Ashtongue Slayer, 2 for a 3/2, and gives a stealth minion +3 attack and immune this turn. Huge stuff. But is Stealth Rogue going to be a thing? Well, maybe. There are a few other cards. Let's have a look. This is one of them. 7 for a 7/5. Not great, but when it dies, you literally get a Ravenholt Assassin. 7/5 stealth. So it's very difficult for your opponent to deal with this. Basically, if you're playing an aggressive rogue deck and you manage to play this out, I don't know why you play a 7-drop in an aggressive rogue deck, but let's just say hypothetically you would. Your opponent has to remove it because it does 7 damage. They remove it, you get a stealth that does 7 damage, so you still take 7 damage. So what is your opponent going to do? He's going to try to remove your other stuff. So you're hitting your opponent for 7 damage. That's a lot of damage to hit your opponent with. This card might not see much play because it costs too much mana, but it is insanely strong. More stealth, 7 for 7/5. This is the art of this card. Ambush, another secret. When your opponent plays a minion, summon a 2/3 ambusher with poisonous. Pretty good. Dirty Tricks, another secret. After your opponent casts a spell, draw 2 cards. Obviously, draw 2 for 2, super good effect. But as I mentioned on the card reveal stream, you typically play card draw last. So if you're just kind of out of cards and you play this and your opponent is like, well, that's probably going to be Dirty Trick, so I'm not going to play any spells, you're going to have a really bad turn. So you typically need to play this at a point in the game where you're not out of cards, which kind of makes it a bit worse. It's not 2 mana, draw 2, which is very good. You're typically going to have to wiggle it out there and be clever with it. It's not quite 3 mana, but it's not 2 either. Greyheart Sage, 3 for a 3/3. If you control a stealth minion, draw 2 cards. Very good reason to play some stealth minions. Blackjack Stunner, 1 for a 1/2. And if you control a secret, return a minion to its owner's hand. It costs 2 more. Wow. Secret Rogue's looking pretty real after this one. Akama, 3 for a 3/4. It has stealth. So very strong card, just as it is. And when it comes back, when you draw it again, it's 6 for a 6/5 with permanent stealth. Your opponent cannot interact with this card outside of board clear effects. That is super strong. I think I'm going to have to give Akama a 5-star rating. Shaman cards. Serpentine Portal deals 3 and you summon a 3-cost minion. Very good. But it has Overload 1. Still very good. I think it's called Flanking Strike for Hunter, where it was kind of this effect, but it was for 4 mana, but it didn't overload you. So this is probably better. Doing it earlier with the overload, there's some synergy with overload even. So this is better than a really good card that was played in Constructed not too long ago. Vivid Spores give your minions Death Rattle, resummon this minion. So I didn't think this card is very good up until I went against Galakron Shaman, and it's really good against Galakron Shaman. Now, is Galakron Shaman going to keep up with the decks we're going to be introduced with in the upcoming expansion? Yes, probably. So this card's pretty good, actually. Bogspine Knuckles, 5 for a 4/2. After your hero attacks, transform your guys. A bit too pricey, I'd say. The Clacker, 3 for a 3/3. Transform adjacent minions into one that cost 1 more. I like this one. I think even though you might not be playing an Evolve deck per se, you might just play this to basically get value off of minions that you had favorable trades with. Like if you have like a 4/5, you kill like a 3/3, so you have a 4/2, you evolve that into like a 5-drop or a 4-drop. That's suddenly very worth it. Lady Vash is the Shaman Prime. 3 for a 4/3, spell damage +1 is value. When you play the second time, you draw 3 spells from your deck and reduce their cost by 3, but she costs 7. My issue with this card, the reason why I think it's just okay, so the first version is really good, but the second version is just okay. You basically need to draw this one card. This one card is a legendary, right? So you can't have 2 of them. So Lady Vash has to be not at the bottom of your deck. Then she has to die. Then you have to draw this. Then you have to have a turn where you have 7 mana. Then that has to happen where you still actually have 3 spells in your deck. Yeah, that is going to really struggle consistency-wise. But the original form, 3 mana, 4/3, spell damage +1, that's just kind of good enough in decks that run a lot of spells. So she might see some play, but she's probably one of the weaker primes. Torrent deals 8, costs 3 less if you played a spell last turn. Pretty good. Totemic Reflection, give a minion +2/+2, and if it's a totem, you summon a copy of it. Yeah, that's not that good. The Rumbler, 5 for a 4/6, and if you cast a spell last turn, deal 2 damage to all minions. Very good. Getting additional board clear effects in Shaman is always going to be very powerful. This is a lot of elemental synergy, but that elemental synergy is long gone. So, I don't know. Seems all right. Marshspawn, 3 for a 3/4 elemental. If you cast a spell last turn, discover a spell. I think this card is quite good because just the stat line. 3 mana 3/4s, no matter what, they're always going to be pretty good. So a 3 mana 3/4 with a potential strong effect is always going to consider play in Constructed. The Lurker Below, 6 for a 6/3, deal 3 damage to an enemy minion, and if it dies, repeat to one of its neighbors. Pretty crazy. Warlock cards. Keladon the Breaker, 6 for a 3/3, destroy a minion, and if drawn this turn, instead destroy all minions except this one. That can be a little bit tricky. You won't necessarily get this card exactly when you need to kill the entire board. However, killing a minion for 6 and getting a body out of it is okay. You have to keep in mind, people in the past had just run Siphon Soul. Siphon Soul is a playable card in a control Warlock deck. So you have to imagine this is probably about as playable as Siphon Soul, with a potential upside. Unstable Fellbolt deals 3 to an enemy minion, and a random friendly one. Ooh, well, we'll see. Maybe you don't have friendly ones, so maybe that's pretty good at control lock. Hand of Gul'dan, when you play or discard this, and that second part is really important, draw 3 cards. Is this card good? It is 5 stars good, ladies and gentlemen. This card is absolutely crazy. There's lots of ways to discard, specifically big cards in your hand, as you will see here in a second. And if you discard this, you draw 3 for nothing. Unbelievably strong. Oh yeah, this card. Yeah. So 4 for a 5/5 rush, battle cry, discard the highest cost card in your hand, which you're going to try to select this one. Play this, Get this, play that. It's a 4 for a 5/5 rush demon, and you draw 3 extra. Unbelievable value. Unbelievable zoo. The Dark Portal. Draw a minion. If you have at least 8 cards in hand, it costs 5 less. Okay. Enhanced Dreadlord. 8 for a 5/7 taunted demon. The Death Rattle gives you a 5/5 Dreadlord with lifesteal. Pretty good effect, but I would have to say overall, it's just a little bit too fair. So I have my doubts. 8 mana cost, pretty fair. Yeah. It's good though, just maybe a bit too fair. Imprisoned Scrap Imp. I played this a little bit, and I think it is quite weak. Perhaps you can come up with some kind of crazy combo utilizing the hand buff, but it's a hand buff. It's not a buff in play. You play this on 2. You're basically not playing a card on 2 in terms of zoo tempo, and it's really hard to get that back if you're playing Warlock. So it's mostly a card you play in like a control type of deck, and you buff specific minions in your hand. I don't know. It's just a really weird card. Shadow Council. Replace your hand with random demons and give them +2/+2. That could be good. I don't know. We're going to have some real math, simulations on this card, but I think it's going to be just pretty good, but more of a meme because typically decks try to trend towards consistency. Dark Glare. 3 for a 3/4. After your hero takes damage, refresh 2 mana crystals. Super good in zoo. Super good in any kind of combo. And I'll certainly try my hand and luck at a few of those decks. I will, reluctantly, but I still will, give this card a pre-rating of 5 full stars. Kenrithod Ebonlock. 2 for a 3/2. Your demons cost 1 less. That alone is just very strong in zoo. Super strong card. The Prime version, you summon 3 friendly demons that died this game. Now, if you're getting the most out of the original version, you're playing pretty small demons. So this is not going to give you that much stuff. But the first version is so good that I think it's just a pretty good card overall. Surprisingly, though, mostly because of the original version rather than the Prime version. But I guess when you're running low on cards in the late game in a zoo deck, it's just a bomb, like just tons and tons of stats in one card. That's also pretty fitting. So still very good in that case, I suppose. Bladestorm. This is a talked about card. It's not quite Defile. It's a lot harder to set up. Deal 1 damage to all minions and repeat until 1 dies. So there's only 1 big minion you want to kill on the board, which is often the case if you're playing Control Warrior, by the way. You can just kill that card. So it's pretty good, but it costs 3 mana, so it's a little bit more of a price than Defile. The issue comes when your opponent plays a lot of small cards. If your opponent has like a 1/1, like a 5/5, this really is not very good. But I think on average, knowing what control style warriors can do, this will probably end up fitting into the deck. So it is a good card. Warmaul Challenger, 3 for a 1/10. And the battle cry battles an enemy minion to the death. Interesting. Actually, it's my favorite anti-aggro card in the game. You kill some garbage minion, and then you have a colossal low attack card to deal with the rest. I love it. Imprisoned Ganarg. 1 for a 2/2, dormant for 2 turns, and when it awakens, you equip a 3/2 axe. Wow. Right? Wow. This card is incredibly good. Kargath Bladefist is the Prime. It's 4 for a 4/4 rush, which is fair. And when it comes back, it's 8 for a 10/10 rush. When it kills a minion on attack, you get 10 armor. So, unlike the Warlock one, just pretty good at first, and then ridiculous in Prime form. Corsair Cache, draw a weapon, give it +1/+1. Drawing specific cards is always quite powerful, and I think weapon buffs are even more so, because you always want specific weapons at specific times. We'll see though. It doesn't blow up in your face OP level of power, but I think it's pretty good. Bloodboil Brute is 7 for a 6/8 rush, and it costs 1 less for each damaged minion. This includes your opponent's stuff, it includes your stuff, so if there's 7 damaged minions, this costs 0. Is that often going to be the case? No, but I think you can get this down to like a 4 or 5 mana card pretty easily, making it really damn good. Bone Chewer Raider, 3 for a 3/3. If there is a damaged minion, again, your side or your opponent's side, you get 1/1 and rush. Very good card, but still there is a bit of a power creep, but still the most favored 3-drop stat line right now is the 3/4, and this crushes it. So maybe it's a little bit better than just okay. Sword and Board, deal 2, gain 2. For 1 mana, I don't know. I think it's good. I think if just the meta is super hyper aggro, it's insane. But I feel in the typical scenario, a control warrior not only needs to hold aggro at bay, but it needs to play a heavy enough deck that it doesn't run out of cards before it can win. And this just might not do enough as 1 card for it to meet that standard. Scrap Golem, 5 for a 4/5 mech. Taunt, Death Rattle, get armor equal to this minion's attack. So it looks good, it is pretty good, but it's not super OP because Boomsday is actually rotating out of standard. So all of those super OP control warrior mechs, well, you can't play them anymore. And with that in mind, this is just pretty good. You know, not that crazy. Bulwark of Azeroth. When your hero would take damage, instead this loses 1 durability. 3 for a 1/4. It's terrible against hero powers that do 1 damage, so it's super meta based. But if it is a meta with like combo decks, well, this can do some serious work. And that's basically the identity of this item in World of Warcraft, I guess, right? So it's the ultimate in defense when you really, really need it. So it's good execution of a card, but it's probably not going to be that played. Red Whelp. Well, that's a Battlegrounds card. Okay. Rustsworn Initiate, 2 for a 2/3. Summon a 1/1 Impcaster with 1 spell damage. It's a Death Rattle. It's a pretty good card overall. Most of the neutrals are, we used to call them pack fillers. They're a little bit better than that. A lot of them have a chance to actually see play now, but they are typically just okay to good cards. That's the Impcaster. The Felfin Navigator. Okay to good. Yeah. Buff your Murlocs. It's a pretty big Murloc. Terran Gorefiend, 3 for a 3/4, destroy your minions. And then when this dies, you resummon them with +1/+1. So I talked about this a little bit. You want to do this on cards that you want to die, like eggs and that kind of stuff. The problem is, when you do a lot of Death Rattle effects like that, you might like fill the board. So if your opponent just single target removes Terran Gorefiend, his Death Rattle might not work very well, but he's a 3-cost 3/4, so I don't know. I feel like this could see some play. I just think it's difficult to make him work. Scrapyard Colossus, 10 for a 7/7 taunt. When it dies, you get another 7/7 taunt. I think it's too slow, but it's a good card if it actually survives the meta. Imprisoned Vilefiend, 2 for a 3/5, dormant for 2 turns, and then rush. Not bad. Terrorguard Escapee, 3 for a 3/7 demon, and the battlecry summons 3 1/1 huntresses for your opponent. So this is pretty good. I think it'll be a bit difficult to play for most decks, but I don't know. The arena player in me says it's a pretty good card, but yeah, it's a bit difficult. Rustsworn Cultist, 4 for a 3/3. Give your other minions Death Rattle, summon a 1/1 demon. You're going to have a pretty full board for this to be good. Replicatotron, 4 for a 3/3 mech. At the end of your turn, transform a neighbor into a copy of this. So basically, you play it on one of the sides. Positioning is important. I love cards that focus your skill on positioning and planning. So if you hit a 1/1 with it, this is basically a 4-cost 5/5 with a perpetual effect that is hopefully positive, right? Hopefully positive. I imagine if it takes damage, it can be bad, but in general, it's probably quite positive. I like the card a lot. I think it probably won't see play, but what can I say? I'm glad they're making it. Kael'thas. Is this card good? Well, you know already. You've been playing it for a while. And the answer is yes. It is very good. Frozen Shadow Weaver, 3 for a 4/3, battlecry, freeze an enemy. Cool, alright. Bone Chewer Brawler, 2 for a 2/3 taunt. When this minion takes damage, get +2 attack. Pretty solid. A 2 for a 2/3 taunt in a neutral category. It's probably going to fit in somewhere, so just keep it in mind in that sense. Bone Chewer Vanguard, 7 for a 4/10 taunt. And when this minion takes damage, get +2 attack. Again, pretty good, but not that high power level. It's a neutral card. Burrowing Scorpid, 4 for a 5/2. Battlecry, deals 2 damage, and if it kills a target, you gain stealth. Now, this card might be a bit better than you think because, well, it's almost like a junior neutral Fire Elemental. Fire Elemental is a card of the past, but that's because Shaman has some really good options for like the minion plus removal in one card slot, but not everyone does. I think this card is going to be very strong. Rustied Raider, 5 for a 1/8, Taunt and Rush, and it gets 4 attack the turn you play it. So the turn you play it, it's 5 for a 5/8 rushing taunt. Yeah, I can see people playing that. The Blistering Rot is a 3 for a 1/2. At the end of your turn, summon a Rot with stats equal to this minion's. So basically, you play this, you buff it, and then you perpetuate a win. Nah, I don't think you're going to play this. This is one of the most terrifying cards in the upcoming expansion. It's the Og Merchant. It's a 1-cost 2/1, and the Battlecry deals 1 damage to a minion and gives it Divine Shield. I'm going to rate this card 5 stars. I think it is that good. It's a 1-cost 2/1, which is pretty good. It can be used as removal or as a Divine Shield effect for whatever point in the game. Rocket Og Merchant. 1 for a 2/1, deals 1 damage to a minion and gives it Rush. Not quite as good as a Divine Shield, but still very good. Ethereal Og Merchant. 1 for a 2/1, deal 1 damage to a minion and give it spell damage +1. Starting going on a downward trend here. 6 for a 5/6 Dragon. The Death Rattle gives you a 3/4 Dragon Rider. Very nice themed card. Overall, I saw this card and I'm like, hey, this card sucks. But actually, it's not bad. It's very comparable to Highmane, and the Dragon tag is very relevant in some of the archetypes that are probably going to see some play in the upcoming expansion, namely Priest. Soulbound Ash Tongue, 1 for a 1/4. When this takes damage, also deal that damage to your hero. So that is a bad thing unless you're playing a Warlock deck where you get mana for taking damage to your hero. That might work out pretty well, wouldn't it? Disguised Wanderer, 4 for a 3/3 Death Rattle. You get a 9/1. I mean, it's mostly memes, right? This is a meme card. It's a meme card. Waste Warden, 5 for a 3/3. You hit something for 3, and then you copy that tribe and hit everything else for 3 as well on the board. So if your opponent has like 5 3/3 beasts, bam, kill it. Kill them all. Pretty cool card. I think it'll probably see some play in some decks, but it's very driven by what other people are playing, of course. Overconfident Orc is a neutral card. It's a very powerful taunt neutral. 3 for a 1/6 taunt alone. No other ability would probably see some play in Constructed. This one at full health gets 2 attacks. So at full health, when you play it, it's a 3-cost for a 3/6 taunt, which is amazing. This card is amazing. Infectious Sporling, 1 for a 1/2. After it damages a minion, turn it into an Infectious Sporling. Cool. Scavenging Shavara, 6 for a 6/3. The Battlecry deals 6 damage, split among all other minions. That's a really difficult play. The Artificer, 2 for a 2/4. All minions take double damage from spells. There might be some kind of combos here. I think it's a cool card. I think it might see some play in spell-heavy decks, but it's a tricky card to slot. Supreme Abyssal, 8 for a 12/12 demon that can't attack heroes. Arena. Alar, 5 for a 7/3. It's a legendary, of course, and Death Rattle gets a 0/3, and next turn transforms back into this. That's probably not going to work out too well, but I don't know. In World of Warcraft, it's like the greatest novelty mount. I feel like the card will have a similar role in Hearthstone. Maiev Shadow Song is a neutral removal. It makes something dormant for 2 turns. It's 4 for a 4/3 with that effect. That's pretty strong, but it's going to have to be played in decks with significant shoutout potential, namely aggro decks with Spell Burst. And then finally, Magtheridon, 4 for a 12/12 neutral neutral demon. I don't know why, but I thought this card is actually a Demon Hunter card. It is not a Demon Hunter card. Is it a neutral card? That's insane. So the card is tricky to play. People see this and they're like, wow, that's the most OP card ever. In some cases, it will be. So yes, it is a 4-cost 12/12. It's dormant, and the battle cry needs to happen. Okay, this is like the darkness. If you evolve into this, he will never wake up, so it's not good. But if you play him, you get the battle cry to go off. Your opponent gets 3/1/3 warders, and when you kill all of them, Magtheridon wakes up and kills all enemy minions. So that effect is really strong, but if your opponent doesn't have 3 slots on the board, or if he transforms even one of them, or if he bounces even one of them, or if you just fail to kill them for a long time, you just gave your opponent 3/9 in stats. So, there's a lot of stuff that can go wrong, but I think it can probably work in some decks. It's a really powerful card with a huge risk, but the fact that it will be tested in all 10 classes, there's 10 classes now, I think it'll find a place somewhere. So I think it'll be a good card, though not quite a 5-star card in my book. Hope you guys enjoyed this side of the card review. Hope you guys are hyped for the upcoming expansion, and we'll see you guys tomorrow.